I'm Marty Cohn, and welcome to episode 7 of PR Benefits, a show that explores the role of public relations in the COVID-19 era. I've been a PR practitioner for over 45 years, helping a wide array of organizations successfully communicate their messages to targeted audiences. I mistakenly thought that 9/11 would be the watershed event in my lifetime. Communicating in the aftermath of that tragic event was challenging. Then came the global economic downturn of 2008 with more lessons in crisis communications. However, 12 years later, we have the coronavirus pandemic and new challenges in uncharted waters have emerged. My guest today is Kelly Young, founder of Bays Communications in Indianapolis, Indiana. Now, here's where I get to tell you about Kelly, and sit back because you're going to be as impressed as I am. Kelly Young has worked in nearly every capacity of public relations throughout her 20-plus year career. Before starting her own PR firm, she worked for Indianapolis's top PR agencies and in the nonprofit industry. Kelly brings the knowledge and skills to help her clients achieve their communications objectives through strategic planning, aggressive media relations, we'll hear about that, community relations, and event management. Kelly proclaims to be a lover of all things nonprofit. Others have claimed she is a PR marketing guru and nonprofit junkie. One thing is true. She is motivated by working for and with people and organizations that enrich lives and make a positive impact in the community. Kelly has been honored as one of Indy's best and brightest and received the Edna B. Lacey Community Service Award for outstanding civic accomplishments. Welcome, Kelly.
Wow, what an introduction. I need to have you beside me everywhere I go just so you could introduce me. That was so great. Thank you.
Well, the thing that as I like to point out is when I say I'm talking to seasoned PR professionals, this proves it. You have done it. But that's, so that's the list of all the things that you've done. But before we get too far, something that I'm really curious about is how did you get started in public relations?
Wow, that's a great question. I actually went to Ball State University, which we have a shared connection. Your daughter is there now. And I went there thinking that I wanted to do business. Every college student, I think that's one of a generalist, oh, I'll just study business. That's what I'm supposed to do. And I think I took my first econ and math and whatever other class. And I remember going back to my counselor and saying, yeah, what can I take that doesn't have a lot of that? Or what should I study? And, we did the questioning of what kind of person are you, what your personality is, kind of that, a little bit about who you are. And I had a freshman college roommate who was studying journalism, and I loved what she was doing and seeing the kind of work and classes that she was studying. And I thought, maybe that's what I want to do. So I actually at Ball State studied PR and advertising and thought I'd get a degree in both. Through my 4 years, I actually leaned more towards the public relations. I found, at least at Ball State, I had a class in advertising, and the advertising professor actually pitted us against each other. Ooh. And only one group got an A. And he said, it's like that in real life. Only one agency is going to get the account. And that really kind of turned me off a little bit into the agency, advertising agency world. Right. And I leaned a little bit more to the PR. I think the storytelling and the impact that we can make with our words was a little bit more engaging. And I think professors can have a huge impact on your life. And I had a PR professor at the time who really encouraged me, really supported me, and really motivated me. So I thought for sure I was going to be an agency girl right out of the gate. And my first job was with an organization, a nonprofit called The Villages, and they provide services for abused, neglected children. And loved that work, but also thought I wanted to go to an agency. And so started at a agency 2 years after college and never looked back. I did work for a university, Indiana University, Purdue University here in Indianapolis, IUPUI. And I was there for about 10 years as director of community relations. So a little bit of the community events, public relations, promotion, all for the university, and then continued down that agency route and went back to another agency here in town. So overall in my career, I've worked in 4 PR agencies, including my own, and 2 nonprofits.
Wow. Okay. Fantastic. Now I have to just clarify for those who are listening, my daughter is not a student at Ball State. She's a professor at Ball State.
Yes,
So
yes.
I don't want you to think. All right. So here's what I want
You
to do
just aged yourself.
you know what? It's okay. I'm fine. I'm seasoned. That's,
Yes,
that's it.
yes, I love it.
So what I want to do now is kind of break things down a little bit in terms of looking at COVID-19. So let's talk about pre-COVID-19, and I won't tell you what that means, but what do you consider some of your career highlights pre-COVID-19?
It's a good question. I love that question also because it gets me thinking about what I've done over my career. It's interesting that you mentioned 9/11. I was at the university when that happened, and I was director of community relations, and I was actually tapped to lead the university's communications efforts during that time.
Wow.
And that not only meant what we were doing and talking to our students and to our faculty members, but as a community, how we were reacting and rallying around 9/11 and around New York. So that really was a highlight for me. Crisis communications, community relations, creative and crafting messages was rather interesting during that time. Some of the other work that I've really enjoyed, I've done a couple of restaurant openings, and that's always fun to when a new restaurant comes into town to do the media and the promotions. And again, a lover of all things nonprofits, always trying to connect the restaurant with a nonprofit for some kind of benefit. So that's been a great highlight for me. And then 2 other projects that I'll just mention is I had the opportunity to work on national media for a small nonprofit here in Indianapolis called People for Urban Progress. And they partnered with Amtrak. And when Amtrak was retiring some of their trains, they upcycled their leather seats and created this beautiful collection of handbags, purses, and dop kits and a few other things. And so we were actually the agency that was tapped to do the national, regional, and then also industry publication PR. So that was really great to be able to do that.
Very cool. Very cool.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
By the way, do you have one of those bags?
What's that?
Do you have one of those bags?
I do. Yes. I'm quite the proponent for, showing off some of the work that we do. And if I can wear it or, walk around with it, absolutely. So I do have one of those bags
that is cool. I could tell you that, as I said, I've been doing this for 45 years. And what I'm starting to do now is I'm trying to, going through files and trying to reduce stuff. But I'm finding, all the tchotchkes and the ad specialties and the things that I've done, and kind of I look at it fondly with, then I give it away. But but yeah, that's great. That sounds like a really worthwhile project and something that was very successful too.
Yeah, yeah. The other project I wanted to mention too, because it's so different, is we worked with Citizens Energy Group here locally in Indianapolis,
right.
And they're working on a $2 billion tunnel system, 28-mile network of tunnels 250 feet below ground to improve the water systems. And it's really hard to really kind of grasp that just by talking about it through the media or through messaging. So we created this what we call Dig and D Art project, and we collaborated with the art community and then the general community, and the artists actually designed manhole covers. And then they were placed throughout the streets in Indianapolis, but they designed and created what does clean water mean to you? And that's how they represented their art on a manhole cover. And that was a fun, cool media, community relations, special event project that combined all of the PR tactics that we all love to engage in.
That's a great one too. Wow, that's 2 projects. That's fantastic. All right. So, all right. So now now let's move to COVID. What are you doing for your clients during COVID-19, which we're in now?
Yeah, well, interesting about my agency life, I actually relaunched Bayes Communications about 3 weeks before COVID-19 hit.
Wow.
So nothing like timing is everything, right?
Yeah.
So that was rather interesting. I still work with Caldwell Van Riper, CVR, the agency that I was before, and in between times, because I ran Bayes Communications for about 10 years and then joined CVR. And
Right.
then decided that I was really missing the nonprofit, so went back to Bayes Communications. But the timing, was a little bit of a challenge, but that's okay. We'll
Right.
get through it. So I, like my clients as well right now, are just really working on trying to be relevant,
Right.
to tell those stories that are important right now. I think everybody's trying to figure out what to say, who to say it to, when to say it, and what's the appropriate tool.
Right.
So I think as PR professionals and counselors, we need to make sure that we're giving our clients the best advice and that we're using that same advice for our own selves. So really trying to talk to my clients about what's the right message and who are we really trying to target. I have been fortunate to do a couple of media projects with some of my clients through Bayes right now. And a lot of it is around how to move their mission. I have one nonprofit who basically changed their entire mission right now. The organization is called 913 Sports, and they're all about taking bikes into schools and helping educate kids about health and education.
Okay.
Well, when all the schools closed, they were in fear of having to close down their nonprofit.
Right.
So they totally switched gears and pivoted. That's the word of of COVID-19, but they pivoted their services, and now they're a distribution site, and they're helping move 100,000 to 200,000 pounds of food out each day or each week. So I'm really trying to help them tell that story, both not only to the media,
Right.
but also to their, their constituents, their donors, and their partners.
Well, all right. So when you talk about media, has there been any change in terms of which media you're using? Is the newspaper still alive and well and taking stories about COVID or other than COVID?
Yeah, it's interesting. I just actually moderated our local PRSA, which is Public Relations Society of America. I know you know that, but in case others don't, but I just moderated a media panel for our local chapter. And it was exactly about that question about media. How are we able to pitch stories? How are news stories changing right now? How are the newsrooms changing? And, I think as PR consultants, one of our jobs right now to try to get our media stories told are to be relevant, but also creative in our message. And we also have to package it up. That's not necessarily new, but these
Right.
reporters are saying, look, I'm in the same situation as you. I'm, staying safe at home. So I need you to send me video. I need you to send me images. I need you to send me the whole package because I can't necessarily get out to XYZ site to
Right.
cover the story. I think we're all challenged with how do we tell a story right now in COVID-19 that isn't related to the coronavirus? But I also think right now too, depending on when this airs, we're hitting somewhat of a COVID-19 exhaustion, not only as viewers and listeners, but also as, PR and media people. Like we want to move on. We want to tell stories of hope while it's still relevant. And I think the coronavirus and COVID-19 is here, unfortunately, for a while.
Right.
I think we're also looking for what are those stories of hope and stories of entertainment and positive news.
Right. But I totally agree with you. I guess I'm curious are you finding like you're leaning more toward social media, finding, to get that message out, we're somewhat limited. I mean, everyone, we've got the traditional ways, the television stations, whatever, but everyone's inundating them. We have a way to get our message. We're trying to package it. Are you finding using social media more? using more
Yeah.
targeted emails? What you see any change that way?
Yeah, I would say, as PR people, we always talk about earned and owned media.
Right.
And right now, I think a lot of, at least with some of the clients that I'm working with, we're looking at what are our owned media, meaning what do we own and how can we leverage that?
Sure.
So I have one client, Women's Fund of Central Indiana, that during this time started a new blog specifically so they could talk about the work that they're doing to grant organizations here locally with their emergency grants and what are some of the agencies doing with those funds. So we're finding that if we can't get to the media, to the traditional media, that we can use our own media to tell those stories. So whether that's in the look of a blog or podcasting, as you're doing as well too with this, or if we're looking at social media and how can we tell more creative short stories through social media. Video is making an incredible impact in the way that we're telling stories through social media, and you can do that very easily with your own setup and
Right.
your own iPhone. And right now there's so many free webinars and workshops that I would encourage anybody to take a look at those and learn how to do social media videos and social media content, because again, we own that, and it's not, at least for our nonprofits who are having budgets cut and their budgets are so thin, that we're really trying to think creatively. And so they own their website, they own their blog, they own their digital platforms, and so really try to leverage those to their best of their ability. And then I think that's also a good tool to be able to share with the media, right? So here are our articles that we've written and that we've shared, and here's a link to some additional information and resources, providing the traditional media with as much information as possible, even if it's articles that we're writing on our own.
Absolutely. Okay, couldn't agree with you more. All right, so
Thanks.
now let's put our crystal ball. So what do you think is going to be the role of PR as we emerge and begin and watch this is air quotes, a new normal?
I like that.
A new normal. Yeah.
I like that. I think it's interesting because I saw that question, you sent that over. And to me, I think the role of PR in the new normal is the same that it should be always. It's always about relationships. It's always about communication. It's always about, being relevant and telling those, stories that we need to tell to provide impact. I think, again, as I mentioned, it's just trying to figure out who we're trying to tell those messages to and how we're going to do that in today's environment. Unfortunately, at least here in Indy, I can talk about some of the PR people that I know are being let go and being furloughed.
Oh.
I know PR budgets are being frozen. It's oftentimes the budget. And I would say one of the things that I would encourage people to do is to continue to think about the important role that public relation plays. We have to continue to move the mission of these organizations. And while it's somewhat easy for them to think, oh, that's the PR budget or that's media, and we're going to focus on advertising or focus on these efforts, really PR is relevant and key in that messaging. And I think PR people need to continue to be relevant and play an important role in, leadership and thought leadership. That's
Sure.
something that, you hear the buzzword of thought leadership. How can we engage with leaders and making sure that they're a part of the messaging? And I think also too, ROI is going to be so incredibly important for PR people. So what's the return on investment? Sure. And so, if they're investing in a public relations agency, consultant, a PR plan, how are we going to be able to show that return on investment?
Sure. Yeah. Okay. Well, I maintain that PR is always at the top of my pinnacle in terms of communications, and I think that it has shown itself to be a important project for us to continue doing during COVID, and it will return again as being at the top of the pinnacle when we come back to the new normal. That's me looking out after 45 years.
Well, then so you would be very familiar with the old saying too, that advertising is what you pay for, public relations is what you pray for, PR is what you pray for. And so, that's my thought too, is that we're praying to get our messages out there and using the creative collaborations, relationships, and creative messaging to get those stories told. And that's the real role of what PR people are all about.
Amen. All right. Well, Kelly Young, founder of Bays Communications in Indianapolis, Indiana. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you for having me. I forgot to mention too, that I have a podcast. We were talking about that earlier. So a little selfless plug here for Badassery Life. And it's a podcast and blog where I like to write about, celebrate ordinary women doing extraordinary things. And so we talk about pre-COVID and post-COVID. So right now I'm focusing on some of the nonprofit and small business leaders and how they're leading their organizations through COVID-19. And starting in June, we'll just get back to telling some of those badass stories of badass women. Am I allowed to say that on your show?
Absolutely, you can. You could say anything you want. All right.
Sweet.
So I want to say a thank you to Rich Mellinson at BCTV for helping to edit this show, Rachel Cohn for her technical assistance, and Twin Musicom for the music. It's called Hat the Jazz. I use it for the intro, outro for the show. I am Marty Cohn in Vermont. Stay healthy.